I wanted to talk about my top 5 spring eyeshadow palettes today because we all know I love eyeshadow palettes and I really enjoy spring, and I wanted to give a special love to a few of my palettes during this season. So if you're curious to hear what are my top 5 palettes and maybe a couple of honorable mentions, then please keep on watching. Hi everyone, how are you guys doing today? I hope that everyone is doing really well. Happy spring. I know that spring is officially here as of a week or two ago. I don't know when I'll be posting this. So today we're going to talk about some top spring eyeshadow palettes. I am one who does like to switch up makeup seasonally, and at the same time I don't. I sort of pick out a few palettes to really zone in on, but then I supplement with other things as I wish. So I'm just going to talk about the things that I have a feeling I'm going to be gravitating towards the next few months for various reasons, as well as maybe a couple of old favorites from the past. I did a video like this last year, so I did a top 10 spring eyeshadow palettes, and I tried really hard not to repeat myself this year. So if you're curious to know more eyeshadow palettes in my collection that I still think are perfect for spring, and I do hope to give all of those palettes a little bit of love as well, then I can go ahead and link that video up in the cards or down below. Both. I figured, you know, it would be fun to explore some newer eyeshadow palettes or other eyeshadow palettes in my collection that maybe I was not as excited to use last spring, but this spring they are calling to me. Let's jump in, but before we do, I just wanted to welcome all of you to my channel, whether you are new or returning. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful that you stopped by and you're spending a little bit of your day with me. My name is Natalia. I'm a concert pianist who adores makeup, beauty, skincare, fashion, and all of those beautiful things. But I definitely have had an issue with shopping for many years, and did a no buy year for the entire year of 2020 to help curb that enthusiasm. Now I'm on a low buy and a budget, and it's been a bit of a roller coaster, I will be honest. But if you're interested to see my journey in my search for balance in both spending and not spending, acquiring and using what I already have. If you're interested in a little bit of project panning, shop my stashes, conversations about new and old makeup, as well as occasional looks, tutorials, and get ready with me's, I kind of try to mix it up and do a little bit of everything because I love watching a little bit of everything, to be honest. So if that sounds good to you, I hope that you will consider subscribing and joining our frugal family. And now let's get into those top 5 spring eyeshadow palettes. All right, so I do have a mixture of new and old. A little bit heavier for me on the new, although for most people, a lot of these palettes are not brand new, but for me, some of these are. So let's jump in. I have done looks with a few of these palettes. The first one I want to talk about is the BH Sweet Shop Pistachio palette. I in general love greens, but I've noticed recently I've really been gravitating towards greens. So I have a feeling this spring, with things starting to bloom, I'm really going to want to explore whatever green eyeshadow palettes and green eyeshadows that I have in my collection. So this was a gift, a Christmas gift from a wonderful friend, Rupi Manhas. She has a channel. I will go ahead and link it because she is amazing, and she gifted me this BH palette because I was still on my no buy. This was coming back in stock. She knew I was not going to be able to purchase it, and she was kind enough to get it for me at that time. I did do a video, a first impression on this. I love the palette, but with a few new palettes coming into my possession in the past couple of months, I haven't been using it quite as much as I've wanted to. And to be honest, also, I haven't been wearing makeup quite as much as I've wanted to. It's been a year. I don't know. It's been, you know, 2020 was rough for everybody, but I feel like 2021 is kind of when it's catching up to me. I'm just perpetually feeling overwhelmed by life right now. So makeup, unfortunately, is one of those things that ends up being one of the first to go when I am stressed, hurried, overwhelmed, overworked. So I really want to reach for this more in the spring, and I think it is a great palette for this time of the year. So if you have it, also go ahead, pull it out, enjoy it. And if there are any other green eyeshadow palettes coming out anytime soon, you don't need them because we have this and we're not loving enough on it. At least I can speak for myself. I know I'm not loving enough on this palette. Next is going to be probably a bit of a surprise for a lot of people. And I put this in strategically for 3 reasons. One, I do think it actually has a lot of colors, perfect for almost any season, including the spring. And then I think it'll roll over really nicely into summer. 2, I've barely used it, and this is an old palette. This is like an OG palette from years back. And 3, I really am looking to do a video and looking to do some looks inspired by the newest Natasha Denona Circoloco palette. I don't want the palette. It's too expensive for me. I don't feel as passionately for or against it as a lot of other people do in the beauty space right now. I feel like people are either loving it because they've been dying to have some color from Natasha Denona, or they're hating it because it makes no sense and it's a jumbled mess to them and they just don't like the design and the overall packaging, etc. I don't have strong feelings for or against it, but there are quite a few colors in there that I think are really beautiful, but I have a feeling I have a good chunk of them, not in one place, but I actually want to sit down one evening. For me, most of the time it's evenings after work, and go through all of my eyeshadow palettes and maybe find some colors that I think are dupes. And one of the eyeshadow palettes that I think has just a couple of colors here and there is the Jaclyn Hill and Morphe palette. I got this not upon the initial release, so to be honest, I have no idea what formula I have. I know that there's controversy with Morphe later on changing the formula, but as you can probably see, I have swatched this palette, but I've not used it. I'm trying to remember. I think I've created one look with this maybe in all of these years. I mean, if you guys have followed Jaclyn and if you guys have followed beauty YouTube, you know how old this is. This came out, I want to say, what, in 2016, 2017. I mean, this thing is at least 4 years old, and I am ashamed to say it's barely used. So I wanted to pull this out. I think it's still relevant. I think that there are tons of spring colors here, you know, between these warm tones and these beautiful lid shades. If I want to deepen anything up because I'm feeling in that mood, I still can, or I can kind of stay away from this whole section and keep it light and fresh. But then I have this corner right here, and of course this corner is what pulled me in. I feel like these 2 bottom shades would be great for spring to punch up the looks and add some color, and I would like to see what shades here maybe could potentially be used for looks that are being created from the Natasha Denona Circoloco palette. I really want to use it this spring, and I really wanted to include this in my top 5 for spring this year. Okay, a palette that I just did a video on recently, and that is the Sydney Grace and Mel Thompson collaboration, and this is the Tiny Marvels palette. It's one of my newer palettes. I loved the first look I created, which I can go ahead and link for you guys if you're curious to see my first impressions on this palette. I think this Mantis green shade and Flutterby are going to be absolutely perfect for this season. I am absolutely living also for Jewel B. I'm so curious to try that shade. I still haven't. Firebutts is really stunning. Meadowhawk, I was saying in my first impressions, Meadowhawk is kind of calling my name, so I have a feeling this is going to be the next shade I use, and probably by the time I post this video, I hopefully would have already used it. I think this has some beautiful, beautiful shades that I can definitely enjoy during the spring. So if you have this palette and you haven't given it love recently, I suggest that you pull it out and you do. All right, we've got 2 more palettes left. They are also newer to my collection, and then we're going to talk about just a couple of honorable mentions. Okay, next is going to be Moonspell by Lunar Beauty. Got this as a Christmas gift. look at this. This packaging and this palette, I wanted this palette for the longest time, ever since it launched at the end of 2019. And I think the color story is just gonna be perfect for me for spring, because these are all the colors I in general gravitate towards, but especially lately. I've been loving my greens. I've been loving purples and mauves. You can see this is one of my favorite sweaters. I'm sure you guys have seen it in other videos. So I'm really excited to explore this palette even further. I have done by now, I want to say maybe 3-4 looks with this, and I definitely am enjoying it so far, but there are still untouched shades here that I have yet to explore, and I would like to do that this spring. I mean, I know this was like a holiday release or Halloween/holiday release, but I really think this color story is so versatile for any season, including spring. It's so fresh. It has such nice brights and neutrals. I don't know, I just feel like this is going to be a really, really fun spring palette. Last but not least, before we get into the runners up, is probably not gonna come as a surprise to those of you guys that have been watching my channel in the past couple of months, because this is the newest palette I own and I am absolutely loving it, and I don't intend to stop loving it anytime soon. This is the Kaleidos and Angelica Nyquist Club Nebula palette. This palette just has it all. This palette is so glorious. I mean, look at these shades. I just feel like this has so many shades that I can enjoy during the springtime. I mean, you've got these bright greens and blues. You have these gorgeous coral orange shades down here. These shiny lid toppers and shimmers. She's perfect. She is just so beautiful. Definitely one of my favorite palettes right now. I could not have not included this in my top 5 for spring. Okay. And now, 2 palettes that are making a comeback from last year, just because these are always my top spring palettes. I have a bunch of others that, of course, as I said, I already talked about last year, and they are still spring favorites. And as I was going through, I really wanted to pull most of those right back out and talk about them again, but I didn't want to be redundant. So I just pulled out 2, and they are 2 of the 3 Juvia's Place palettes that I talked about last year. Definitely the Tribe, because again, I'm gravitating towards those greens, and look at these vibrant, happy, sunny greens, as well as some of these beautiful warm tones. I think this is absolutely perfect for spring and summer, and I really, really need to bust this out because I haven't used it in a little while. And then one of the palettes that I instantly think of in my collection when it comes to spring is definitely the Deuce palette, or the Douce. I am not sure if either one of these, unfortunately, is still available. So if they're not, I'm so sorry. But if you have either one of these and you haven't used them in a while, pull them out right now, because I have a feeling you're really gonna enjoy them in the spring. I mean, look at this one. Does this not just scream spring? I don't know. To me, it does. This is really the first palette I feel like I think of when I think spring eyeshadow palettes. So I absolutely had to mention this one, even though I talked about it last year. I really do adore this color story. I know it's a little bit unusual and unorthodox, but I think that's what makes it so special. I think that normally we would never pair these colors together, and Juvia's Place just has this way of combining colors, or at least they used to have this way of combining unusual colors together and making it work somehow. I haven't been as thrilled with Juvia's latest releases, to be honest. I know like they're jumping a little bit on that whole monochromatic train with all of their little 6-pan palettes, and while I like small eyeshadow palettes, I don't know, to me there was something about Juvia's Place that I associated Juvia's Place always with those interesting color stories, and now they've just kind of lost that edge for me. But these 2 are definitely some of my favorites, and if you have them, please bust them out and use them this spring. And that is that, my friends. I really want to hear what are your favorite spring eyeshadow palettes? What are you using right now? What are you hoping to use in the upcoming few months? I just really want to know what colors you're gravitating towards and just have a little bit of a chat about that. So please do share that with me down below. I would really love that. Other than that, I hope that this was fun and entertaining. Let me know if you agree with my picks. Let me know if you enjoyed this video. One more quick reminder, if you are new and haven't already, to please subscribe. I would love to have you here, and I hope you're well. I hope that you are staying healthy, that you are continuing to take care of yourself and those around you, and I can't wait to see you in my next video. Bye guys.